Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our special episode today of the Unfiltered Historian Presents. As always, I'm Tyler, and joined alongside me from all the way across the pond, we have.
Oh, I forgot my name. No, Daz. Sorry. No, hello everyone. How you all doing?
I don't know if they can tell us how they're doing that quickly. So hopefully everybody's doing well, Darren.
Yeah, hopefully you're all good and hopefully you're all watching. And obviously, it is a very important day because it is it is technically tomorrow. That's when you first started, wasn't it, Tyler?
Well, hold on. Technically, it was actually yesterday.
Yes.
When I was going through the archives of what we've done
Mm-hmm.
previously, the events that we've done, and just stuff that we've covered, I happened to stumble upon, and I say happen to stumble upon, like Facebook doesn't auto-generate what happens a year ago. But the video that John Heckman, the tattooed historian, for those that don't know, that we did out at Gettysburg on July 2nd last year, and I had actually said that this was the Unfiltered Historian on that day, and that was the first live video I've done with the Unfiltered Historian as the name. So technically speaking, we're a little late.
Yes, you
We're a
did.
day
Yeah.
late. But that's okay, because here we are at our 1 year anniversary celebration, and we're really happy to have all you guys with us today. So, like the caption says, grab your favorite drink, come hang out with us, and let's chat some stuff about history, because we got a lot in store for you today. We're planning an episode that's probably going to run until 9 p.m., and I say that again tentatively because it could go beyond that. But some of the stuff we're going to cover today is just some of our favorite moments in Darren and I's career with the Unfiltered Historian, some of the stuff that we've done specifically at Fredericksburg 159. When Darren showed up here in Fredericksburg, and we had a ball being able to film stuff and spend the time on the battlefield that we did. So we'll go over a little bit of that. Of course, today's July 3rd. Today is July 3rd. It's the 159th of the Battle of Gettysburg.
It's the climax of
That's
the
right.
Battle of Gettysburg.
So we'll talk a little bit about what we haven't covered since we've been off the air. We haven't talked about Gettysburg 159th because we haven't done anything for that. So today we'll cover all that too in this episode. That's why it's perfect to put it into the special. But I'm going to shut up about all the preliminaries of our episode and go ahead and just start making it a normal unfiltered broadcast. Over here on YouTube, I have Jerry saying, "If it isn't Stewie Griffin, I love your podcast." Jerry, thank you for that, buddy. I really appreciate that. You also said that you are very ready for the 4th of July. I'm extremely excited myself, and I'm glad to hear that
So
you're ready.
I'm going to celebrate getting rid of you lot.
Getting rid of us. Man,
No,
man,
I'm joking.
we beat you. Be in the river, fireworks to celebrate. You know how it goes. Jerry,
it was a messy divorce.
it was a messy divorce. It was quite costly.
And then we come back in 1812 and burn the White House down. So have that.
That's because you couldn't get over it. We were that one that got away, man. Like,
we're still bitter about
they
it.
were Americans. They were the ones that got away. So we have to go and burn their shit because, it's a messy breakup. Why not?
It certainly was.
It was. So Jerry again says, ready for the 4th of July. We are too, to celebrate the fact that we no longer have to subject to kings or queens or that stuff. But, to each their own.
So I take it you get a public holiday for the 4th of July. Is that right?
I will be bright and early at the National Park Service and working, doing some stuff tomorrow.
Oh, nice. So where are you tomorrow? Are you down at
Fredericksburg?
Well, you can't go to Fredericksburg at the moment, can you?
Yeah, Fredericksburg. Also, a reminder, we do not speak on behalf
of... Did they fix it then? Because I thought you said a tree fell over.
Or from the Eastern National. I have to throw that in there. We do not speak on behalf. Everything you see on this episode is me and Darren's thoughts and our own feelings, whatever. Yeah, boom. Okay. Anyway, sorry, Darren.
The tree fell over at the part of Fredericksburg.
So, yes, recently here... Oh, Nate just said, what about me? Nate, let me get you in here. Hold on.
I did send
him a link. Come in, dude. I didn't even hear you come in. I'm so sorry.
Oh, there
Nate
he is.
Also a part of the Unfiltered Historian. So, Nate, welcome. Happy 1 year anniversary, dude.
Hi.
Yeah,
happy 1 year.
Happy 1 year. Oh, Darren, look, Daryl. Why do you have the limey bugger on? Hey, Daryl, do you want to come on since you are also...
Yeah, get him on. He's part of it too.
You are welcome to come on. You just let me know if you do, and I will shoot you that invite right now. If not, you can stay on.
I still haven't forgiven him for giving me his whiz bang or whatever it was called.
Whiz bang? He gave you Colombian bang bang coffee.
That's the one, yeah.
That's what he gave you. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and send Daryl a message there. Let's get our arms, equipment, artillery, weapon expert here.
Oh yes.
Guys, thank you guys. So again, Nate, Darren, and Daryl both. Thank you all so much for joining tonight. I really do appreciate you guys spending this evening with us here.
Absolutely.
If I can Daryl here because my computer wants to act like it's from the 19th century, which is nothing new, by the way. I have to tell people that all the time.
Really also celebrating the anniversary of the surrender of Vicksburg, right?
Oh, well, we're glad you're on.
I'm
because
glad
we needed
you're
a Gettysburg
here.
expert, yeah. Because me and Tyler are not, that knowledgeable on that.
Well, the funny thing is, I'm wearing my
need our
Gettysburg
Grant,
hat,
man.
so
I have Ed Bars's Vicksburg trilogy over here, like literally staring me in my face. But I've got a bunch of stuff I'm reading. Nate, I need to show you what I'm really reading right now. And you and I will have a private conversation because I'm not reviewing this publicly just yet.
that's fine.
We need to have a chat.
About yeah, I saw he recently wrote that. I haven't read it yet.
We'll talk later. The Heart of Hell, the soldiers' experience at the Bloody Angle. We will definitely talk later about that. I have thoughts on that.
There's a lot of thoughts on the Bloody Angle, I'm sure, but yeah, no, I absolutely.
Okay, cool. And then the other one I'm reviewing, I'm actually really, really excited for this. So, folks, again, I know it's going to be a Gettysburg birthday celebration, so sorry for getting the book reviews out of the way. But that Bloody Angle book, I plan to review at the Bloody Angle, which is going to be really cool. So we'll do a podcast/live video from the Bloody Angle with that book in hand, and I will do my review from that location because that's just pretty unique. Like, why not bring the book out to the spot that is written about and do that review there? The second one, though. The second book looks. First of all, if you know me and my Civil War, I actually have a secret, like super awesome, Butler is one of the coolest generals in the war. I mean, he's one of the only generals that you could actually crap on, literally.
Exactly. I was going to say
crap
exactly
and
the
that's
same
just a
thing.
little bit of information I'm going to share. I'm not even going to go into why else I really love Butler, but I was told the book wasn't good from a good friend of mine. Which is okay. And you know what? I take his review very seriously too. So like hearing him tell me that it's not good, I'm like, okay, now I'm going to really have. So I was already ordered it. I ordered it off of UNC. So UNC is allowing me to do some reviews for him right now, which is really cool. Daryl, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Awesome. So with UNC
Hello,
doing the reviews, that they're sending me a few books every now and then to review and stuff. So the first two I'm doing again is The Heart of Hell, the Soldier's Experience at the Bloody Angle, which again, my thoughts are, I have some strong feelings for that book and I really can't wait to share that with you guys. And then the Benjamin Franklin Butler book, which is next up in line. So we'll be going through that one and talking more about that because again, I was told it sucks and I don't know. I haven't opened it yet. I don't know. So I really, really look forward to being able to open it up, go through it and tell you how it really is. But that's my,
Tyler,
those are the two. Yeah.
I thought you were drunk for a second because when you said your favorite, you like Benjamin Butler, I was like, what?
Mm-hmm.
Nope, not drunk, but I do like Ben Butler.
I mean, he's not a Phil Sheridan, but
screw Sheridan. I'm not doing that. No love lost there, dude. No.
Oh, hey.
He does a lot of good things, doesn't he? Really.
Stop, Darren. Stop. You're supposed to be on my side.
I mean, I think he didn't he defeat an army up in the Shenandoah?
Right here.
He is the first one, though. He is the first one to accept slaves into his company, isn't he?
Oh, you're talking about Ben Butler? Yes,
he
did.
He was Fortress Monroe, dude. The stuff he does. And actually, right. So I read a book recently, or I shouldn't say read because I'm still definitely only like quarter of the way through it. A book called Freedom National, which is fantastic so far. But one of the things that it touches heavily on is Butler's absorption of what later gets called contraband.
And that's then also he creates a medal, doesn't
he? It too.
He was a great. He may have been a good political general, though. But
was he better than old Dan?
Then which Dan?
Which Dan do you think?
There's many Dans.
A very political.
Dan Sickles? No, because Dan Sickles knew how to fight, and Ben Butler didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh. Stuart Henderson. Hey, Stuart. Thanks for joining in. Stuart says, I like General Butler because he used the USCT as soldiers and then honored them with the Butler Medal. That's
yes, he did.
Right.
Yes, he
did. That
did.
was probably one of his.
Stuart, thanks for that.
Yeah.
One of his biggest contributions.
No, for sure. And that's the thing. Butler comes into the Army, and when Butler's, especially at Fortress Monroe, and one of the things the Freedom National really touches on that I found extremely interesting was the fact that did slaves know that the Union Army actually signified a way to freedom? Where did they get the idea? Because there's a lot of the common notion that there's a lot of illiteracy. There's not a lot of widespread newspaper articles flowing through the South. I mean, and of course, that has a lot of merit to it. But when you look at it from kind of an outside perspective, and then we zero in on Butler, when Butler arrives at Fortress Monroe, so do an enclave of slaves, because their first thing is this means freedom. Why do they have that symbolization of freedom with the blue soldiers that are down here now at Fortress Monroe? They have that because it's not as uncommon for there to be the Union Army definitely, and that's something that was cool too, to shatter that myth of the lost cause. Oh, the war wasn't initially about slavery. Then you tell me why there were droves of slaves that escaped to freedom by the way of Fortress Monroe under Butler's tutelage. That could be a whole episode in itself, and I'm really forward to diving further into the Butler biography to just kind of get more of a feel for Butler. But that's what really prompted that, and it was just ironic that there has been a recent Butler biography to come out. So
there was a very strong reaction against Butler's removal, even after his whole debacle with Fort Fisher. I actually posted. Yeah. There was I posted a letter to Grant that was sent by a Butler sympathizer, and it was a pretty scathing letter. Of course, I'm very critical of this letter because this person obviously knows nothing about military history. But I mean, yeah, people really liked Butler. So that's all I have to say. So
that's fair. No, I mean, I'm really excited to, like I said, dive in and understand Benjamin Butler a little more.
Well, I mean,
go ahead, Darren. Sorry.
Oh, no, okay. No, finish your thought. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, I'm tired of hearing that he's the picture at the bottom of a chamber pot in New Orleans and that he strung up somebody for the flag incident. Like, that's cool. Okay, there's so many different aspects to Butler's life than just those kind of gray areas that we talk about. I would like to know more. And again, reading Freedom National and discovering how much of an influence Butler was to that initial undertaking of grabbing some of those slaves and giving them that opportunity to in turn fight for the United States Army at the later point of the war. That was fascinating to me. So I was really happy that I had that opportunity to read that and gain some more about Butler. But I'm interested to hear what you have to say, sir.
Well, you know me. I'm very military oriented, and you look at so many of his I won't call them campaigns. His to what was the term they used during World War II before Germany actually invaded France was the phony war.
Okay.
Because you look at, like, for example, where he sat down on the peninsula, and you had Beauregard with crap for troops, and you had the whole Army of the James bottled up,
right?
And and then you look at the first few days of the Petersburg campaign, where if Butler had been a aggressive general, he might have done something. There would have never been a siege of Petersburg. And then, I mean, yeah, the final straw was his actions at Fort Fisher, which ranks on total incompetence, in my opinion. I'm sorry with the harsh words, but
it's okay, man. It's your space. It's your time to talk about it. That's cool. And that's what I like. That's one thing that, when we're talking about our first birthday here, that's one thing that Unfiltered Historian is really cool about, is that you really do have an opportunity to come in here and say what you want about history. At the end of the day, we're going to deliver you the facts and the fun stuff. But I like to also see how people really feel about it. Let it be one of those, behind the curtain kind of conversations that you guys get to hear. So, little plug there for the birthday. Thanks, Daryl. You made that sound awesome. Darren, what do you think about Ben Butler? Since we're on this conversation topic now,
I don't know too much about him personally, but only about what people already discussed about the medal and obviously the accepting, the slaves into the fort, and not letting them go back to the line, go back to the their owners, but and obviously the chamber pot, But yeah, he
Everyone knows that one.
doesn't do a lot.
Saying. It's just
He could have stopped the whole Petersburg thing, couldn't he?
I think the picture on this book is in fact his chamber pot picture. If I'm not mistaken. Somebody, if you know better than I do, correct me if I'm wrong, but part of me really thinks that this is actually his chamber pot picture.
But like Daryl was saying, he could have stopped the whole Petersburg thing in its tracks, couldn't he? If he'd have pulled his finger out of his backside.
And we're talking
there's
about
there's a lot of reasons why the second.
Hey Ty, I've got a picture of Ben Butler chamber pot here. I'll send it to you.
All right, cool. Send it up via Facebook. I can put it up in the.
Now that incident itself, I can't remember how it starts. So he upsets the women of New Orleans.
Yes,
New Orleans. Yep.
Because he puts a proclamation out. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I can't remember what
he
it
makes
says.
An example out of a very certain individual there in New Orleans. That sparks a lot of controversy. But yes, Daryl, whenever you're ready for
I'll push it your way in a second.
No, I'm talking about the Vicksburg. Whenever you're ready for those, let me know.
I hope there's nothing. I hope there's nothing inside it.
Oh no, there's not.
Darren, why would I put something inside my Vicksburg books?
No, inside.
No, he's talking about the chamber pot.
Oh.
It's not your one, is it, Daryl?
No. See, we don't use chamber pots in the United States.
Oh, do you know?
You guys still use them over there?
I thought you did.
No.
They're on the way, Ty.
Woods.
Darren thinks we're still
toilet paper. Like you got all that stuff there, bro. All right, thank you, sir. Oh my God, no. Okay, it is definitely not that image, but it's still pretty great.
Make it your screensaver.
You really didn't like your huh?
Make it your screensaver. Just
make it my screensaver.
Yeah.
Let me finish the book first, and then I'll make it my screen. If I don't like the book, my screensaver on my phone will be a Benjamin Butler chamber pot. But I'm not using my phone as a I just have to add that disclaimer.
It needs to be made into a T-shirt, doesn't it?
I think it does. That would be a pretty cool T-shirt. Just say "shit happens" on the back of it and have Ben Butler's chamber pot picture on it or something.
Hey, Darren, you look good in your video you made. You weren't clean and pretty as much. Your boots were dirty.
Oh, my boots were absolutely filthy because it's so dusty.
Oh, okay, he admits it. Hey, Daryl, do you want to dump some tea in the river with me anytime soon, by the way?
We've got the Rappahannock right there. It's already tea-colored, so we could.
It is tea-colored, that's right. Hey, and for those folks that are wondering, this is what it would look like to take a poop on Ben Butler.
Beautiful.
In the 19th century.
Beautiful.
So I think that picture on the book cover is a younger picture. A younger Ben Butler, because
definitely.
I'm gonna be really honest. I don't
know.
He is not an attractive figure whatsoever.
No, and I'm gonna say this: like, this is the first time you're ever gonna have me on record putting Henry Halleck in any type of positive saying for Halleck, and it's right now. Butler is a fucking step below Henry Halleck when it comes to looks, and I'm not even trying to judge this dude, but I'm like, dude, okay, Halleck looks like a fraud.
Really? Wow.
Here's another picture I just found, Ty. It might actually match up.
Halleck with the book cover. Bro. Personality, visual, like sucks. Straight up, just general
the stare.
Oh, I had it up there. Sorry.
General Order 28.
Thank you, Daryl. 28.
I'm not familiar with that one.
Isn't that the one?
Thou shalt not poop in my living image.
Yeah.
Oh, I wonder if that's the one where he
I thought that was related to contrabands.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Don't worry, we have the power of Google.
The power of Google can be a very dangerous thing, brother.
It can be sometimes. It depends what you pull up.
Yeah, it very much can be.
So
right.
I want to just go ahead
Is
and point. I want to
Go ahead.
point out the fact that I am wearing a Gettysburg hat.
Well, General,
And
yeah, so
Dude, I was gonna
General
ask
Order
your hat.
28 is to do with
Yeah.
the New Orleans incident.
Yeah, the chamber pot.
Yeah.
Oh, the 28. Oh,
Yeah.
is that the one where he
we're still
He's
talking
basically
about the
like-
chamber pot?
Well, no, I think
Yeah,
that's
dude,
what
so
led up
you're
to the
wearing a
chamber
Gettysburg
pot.
hat. I'm
Yes.
over here with you, Nate. Like, I'm on Nate's side. Let's talk about this Gettysburg
Hey,
hat upon
Gettysburg
my
is just
hat.
one battle. There was many battles.
There was.
I
Okay,
know,
but
I
Nate's
know.
from the West and he's wearing a Gettysburg hat, bro.
It's
Like
true.
that's
Like
that's,
I very rarely wear this hat. I
Right,
primarily
this is a
wear
big
my
moment.
Shiloh hat.
I gotcha.
But
You and
on this
Tim.
day,
You and
I
Tim.
will wear the Gettysburg hat. And look, I went there a couple years ago, and I liked it. I mean, it's a really cool thing.
It's an amazing place. It's
Yes.
an amazing place.
It's incredible. But you know, and that's interesting because I know a lot of people get into the Civil War because they go to Gettysburg and not like vice versa. I went because I was already interested in the Civil War. I had heard about it.
Right.
And it was interesting. Like I learned a lot while I was there, but it's just really bad because as someone that's working on his dissertation in the Civil War, if you talk to me about Gettysburg, about the minute details and everything, I don't know. Like don't ask me about, the follow-up after Gettysburg. Don't, I have no clue.
Oh, dude, that's the best part.
That
Talk
is
about
a very
Rappahannock
good
State.
part, yeah.
And that's why when
man.
people are like, "Do you blame me for not following Lee?" I'm like, I don't know. I haven't read enough about it. I don't know.
Well, if you want to read a
Absolutely
really good book about it, it's
Lee's Retreat After Gettysburg by Kent Masterson Brown.
No, it's Plenty of Blame to Go Around.
No, it is a good book. I need to give you a
Tyler
book.
throws out a book.
I have a
You
book
shut it
for you,
down.
sir. I have a book for you, sir. You need to read Lee's Retreat After Gettysburg.
I'll have to look at
And
both. I need
freaking
to. Well, and then
book.
someone pointed out I need to read.
Oh, I'm sorry. That is the wrong book. That's the wrong book. I was thinking.
Why
also a
does this
good
keep
book to
coming
read,
up.
but-
Why are we?
Plenty of Blame to Go Around is about Jeb Stuart's ride around Gettysburg.
Well, yeah,
right?
no, I know. I'm
Yeah.
trying. I'm trying to remember the Retreat from Gettysburg book that I've got that I was, and I had never read it, and it was just amazing.
Gustavo says over on Facebook that yesterday I've watched the Gettysburg reenactment at the Daniel Lady Farm and I realized how beautiful Gettysburg is.
Yeah,
Gustavo?
Gettysburg is incredible.
Gettysburg is one of the most incredible Civil War. In fact, I'm completely excluding Civil War now.
One
Gettysburg is
continuous
one of the most
fight.
beautiful
Sorry.
locations ever. One continuous fight. That was Petruzzi.
I'll tell you. Eric Wittenberg.
Yeah, that's what I thought Wittenberg has something to do with that.
Yeah, if I could recommend one book about the retreat from Gettysburg that covers so much, that would be it.
Okay. Yeah, and now
I'll have to take a look at Kent Masterson Brown though. I know he also recently wrote something on
Meet at Gettysburg. He did.
I think Tim said I would like that because of the like kind of military detail that's in that. But
100%.
I just I haven't had a chance to.
Dude, Meet at Gettysburg. You should put that on your list. And then Daryl, again, I'll I have a book to return to you. I read the second Manassas book you lent me, and fantastic.
Oh yes, that is amazing.
It was a great addition to my second Manassas knowledge. The scant knowledge that I have, it was a great addition to it. But when I bring that to you, I will have to bring. We'll just
order the link up soon. Yeah.
Yeah, but we're just gonna have to do a battlefield trip soon.
Anyway, I want to add something, right? So going back to the retreat, okay.
Okay.
Now, it is also the anniversary of the end of the Tullahoma campaign, I believe.
We're bringing this up. You're talking to.
Okay. So the rainstorm that they have during that campaign actually hits the guys retreating from Gettysburg. Did you know that? I got told that by Chris Kolakowski.
I didn't know that, but that would kind of make sense the way weather kind of travels across the country like that.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, that was an interesting fact I was told once by him.
When did the Tullahoma campaign?
It ended on the 3rd of July, I think, didn't it?
Well, because the rainstorm started that night. on
Mhm.
Gettysburg.
Yeah, July
Yeah.
3rd night. So
Yeah,
like tonight,
that-
159 years ago, we'd have.
And
So I
this is
would-
what frustrates me is, sorry, they give, Meade gets a lot of flack for not pursuing Lee, but let's look at the facts. They fought a 3-day battle. Nearly every division, every corps is involved. They're absolutely knackered. They do pursue them, but then there's a rainstorm as well.
yeah,
Which
that
swells the rivers.
he gets a bad rap in my opinion, because you look at almost every battle, the winners weren't in much better condition than whoever lost the battle half the
Exactly.
time.
Mhm.
You have troops, especially you look at Gettysburg, all the corps were intermixed because 6th Corps had been plugged into holes all over. 3rd Corps shattered. 5th Corps is beat up pretty bad.
Yeah.
1st Corps, another shattered corps, and 11th Corps as well.
Well, they've lost their commander as well.
Yep. You got something, Nate?
The only thing I'll add to that, really, and that's true. I mean, yeah, after initially the Battle of Shiloh, Grant does not follow up on Beauregard because it was the largest fight up to the war at that point, and the same is probably true at Gettysburg. However, and this isn't me. I think Meade's rationing was fine after the battle. I mean, it was just so severe, but again, all that changes. The aggressiveness aspect of warfare really becomes present in 64, and again, that kind of leads to Grant's idea, like follow up. I don't care how it's like, I don't care how damaged the army is. Like, we need to end this war, like right now. It will end all the bloodletting a lot more quickly than if we pause, we regroup, and that was the only way to end the war. And no one really saw that. And so I don't want to get after Meade for that. I don't want to get after any commander for quote unquote not following up, because it was the bloodiest battle, I think, on the continent up to that point.
Mm-hmm.
And is it still the point? I don't know.
I think it still is.
Yeah,
it still is. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and one thing that you just said is you got to keep the momentum, but you look at and I'm a Grant fan, but there were times where he probably should have done what we call now an operational pause. Hey, let everyone catch their breath. Yeah, I'm not saying pull back or anything, but there was times where he was trying to attack day after day after day after day with troops that were moving all night to get in a position to assault in the morning. And I think in some, you look at Spotsy Courthouse, perfect example of that.
Isn't it, for that? Yeah.
The troops were exhausted, and you get to the point where you're no longer combat effective because you're just so tired and worn out. I mean, I've been in those shoes. You get to the point where you're just going through the motions. So it's a fine line.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, of course it is. Yeah, it's going to be.
And I loved your point, Daryl, about the corps being mixed up and plugged in holes. So the thing is, people don't realise these big armies, you can't just move them around that quickly and that easily. It's huge, isn't it? So they've got to go back to their proper. It's probably a mess.
And that right there ties into the whole, why didn't Meade counterattack after Pickett's charge?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And there's the discussion.
Hey,
wanted
Daryl,
to.
I can tell you right now, it's because my great granddaddy fired that damn shot of canister at those Union troops that were following up at the end of the battle. That's why.
As a whole, the army wasn't organized at that time to conduct a counterattack. They had no intact division that was. I mean, I guess you could say the 12th Corps, but even then, they had been fighting that morning on Culp's Hill.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's something that you made that point very well, because that's exactly and I was also, for the record, joking that my great granddad, but he does. There's this bullshit, and we'll talk about later. I shouldn't say bullshit because Longstreet does absolutely write about this happening. But there's, at the end of the very Battle of Gettysburg, there's a small contingent of Union troops that actually try to advance towards the advanced position of the Peach Orchard, which would today be by where the Longstreet Tower is at, in the field directly in front of that tower. So over there, and that would be pretty much the Warfield property, I think. I could be wrong, but I think that has a lot of makeup, the Warfield property anyways. But my ancestors, who was with Parker's battery, is in that position, and Longstreet gives them an order, and they fire, and a Union troop doesn't continue marching. And there's a very vulnerable position there because Longstreet and Lee are actually kind of out in the open there, and there's not much of a protection to guard those two. And there's a sizable Union force moving towards them. So later in the episode, when we start talking about Gettysburg more, which I hope comes up soon because I'm really excited to go into a little bit of Gettysburg, being that it's July 3rd, we'll go into that in detail. But yeah, Daryl, that's something that you brought up. It was only a regiment that was attacking this, not even attacking. I guarantee you, it was
just moving forward.
Right. It wasn't something that's just anything. But hey, Nate, you can let us know if you got to go, dude. Just tell us, hey, no, thanks for stopping in, bro. I appreciate the message. I'm not gonna bash Grant because I think Grant is less of a butcher than Lee. There, it's on record.
I'm listening to that lecture series about Lee at the moment. And believe me, Lee is a butcher.
Yep.
Yeah, I know.
I'll be looking forward to watching the rest of this, guys.
Before I leave, Lee traded the lives of his men for time at Spotsylvania. Grant never once did that. We'll leave you with that. Who's the butcher at the end of the day, folks?
Whoa.
Yeah. That is
Just saying, Lee didn't does Lee really care about the lives of his men, or does he care about that precious time?
I'll let you know about my thoughts I sent over to Tim.
All right.
About that. So
I'm interested, because that's kind of the position I hold. Like, I like Grant in the fact that when we want to compare butchery, Lee and Grant, really.
Right, let's look at Lee's first 14 weeks in charge. Yeah.
I love that this is the way this is ending right now.
Guys, honestly, listen a minute.
This is a good way to end my departure.
Awesome. Hey, Nate, thanks for everything.
See you later.
Take care.
See you guys.
See you, buddy. But kind of zeroing back to that Gettysburg, I got way off on a tangent there.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, but and Daryl, you and I have had this conversation too, and both you and I have been in agreement. We're like, Grant Lee, who's the butcher?
Oh yeah.
Right. So I want to add something because again, I'm listening to at the moment about this, and for that first 14 weeks, Lee, between the Peninsula campaign, 7 days battle, all the way up to Antietam, he loses a lot of men.
Oh yeah,
a lot.
More than he needed to.
He's the hero, isn't he?
How can we call Chancellorsville Lee's greatest victory when he loses the amounts of men that he does? Guys, we have the tattooed historian here with us. Hello.
What's going on?
Hello, young man.
We're talking about how much of a butcher Lee is in comparison to Grant, so you joined at the right time.
I joined at the right time. Yes. Yes. I'm loving this.
Well, John, thank you for joining the first birthday, the Unfiltered Historian.
Yes, congratulations.
And you know what? Our first video was actually with you. We were just talking about that at the beginning of the broadcast because we had the impression that July 4th, but if you remember, we didn't have the Facebook page because of that snafu with the Mr. Oculio thing.
Yes.
The first ever live Unfiltered Historian I ever did was sitting in the peach orchard at the Sherfy farm with you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I was like, yesterday is actually our first birthday, but we're going to celebrate it today because.
Wow, that's cool. That's cool.
So,
yeah, congratulations.
Yeah, you being here for that, man, that's awesome.
Yeah, and Lee's a butcher.
Oh, Lee's a butcher.
He definitely is. He is.
He is. He is.
He loses more men than Grant.
Yeah. I think it was Gary Gallagher who actually.
Yeah, that's what I'm listening to at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
The great courses.
Yes.
I think I know that I've heard it before from Gary.
Yes.
Yeah.
And again, like I was saying, that 14 weeks from the 7 days battles all the way up to Antietam, he loses so many men. It's unreal. It's absolutely unreal.
Well, you look at the 7 days, Malvern Hill should have never happened. There was no way they were going to push the troops back, but no one brings that up. They only bring up the 4 hours at Cold Harbor.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, Grant said that he regrets it.
Yeah.
Okay,
then again, guys, that's the power of the press at the time, Well, it's like Facebook is now, It's like literally they could print anything they wanted and people believed it. That's the thing, depending on your audience.
Yeah.
Well, as a commander, who wouldn't regret a failed attack? You know, you're not going to be like, oh, that was great. No. So he was being honest how he felt about that, in my
you know
opinion.
what, Daryl? You're going to probably like side-eyed me for this, but that's why I love Joseph Hooker.
Oh,
I know
wow.
it's spicy. It's spicy.
It's
But
spicy.
who else in the Union Army other than Grant, like, single-handedly takes ownership for their fuck up? Hooker.
But
Hooker says it himself. I lost.
He does, but
I
then he also
I can't do anything. Sorry.
I just watched something not too long ago.
Hooker, man. Like,
he makes a lot of excuses as well, blaming.
Okay, he does, but so does Meade. And I love Meade. I love George Meade. But George Meade has every excuse in the book as to why he doesn't do something. McClellan, don't get me started.
Yeah, well, we won't even go down there.
Burnside hides his excuses in his sideburns. I don't even want to get started with Burnside.
Well, hold on here a second. Okay. Burnside has an actual gripe. All right.
Yeah, he got
logistics failed him totally.
And to Burnside's defense with you, Hooker does kind of like take
there was a lot of backstabbing.
Yeah. Hooker definitely undermined the absolute hell out of McClellan. Burnside, excuse me. Ooh.
Right. And Meade needs more credit than that. Come on.
I think so, yeah. Yeah.
I don't know, man. All right.
Well, so let's look at Meade and him deciding not to attack at Mine Run.
Yeah.
If he had, it would have been.
It's true.
Well, yeah, but in general, because he was pissed off. He's like, "Why aren't you attacking? Come see my position."
Right.
He goes down there and goes,
see, that's also
you're right.
Let me that's a real quickly, since we brought that up. For those that screw on Warren for the wilderness and Spotsylvania questioning, when you are a general, okay, and you're let's put you in this position, you're Warren. At Mine Run, you successfully convince the commander to call off an attack. Come see my position. Come see what's going on. Okay, and so you try that at Wilderness, and you try it at Laurel Hill. Right. Can you kind of see why Warren was pissed off and maybe sent some of the attacks that he did? Because Grant, as good of a general as he is, here's a flaw. He doesn't listen to a lot of his corps commanders. He makes decisions on his own, and he makes decisions based off of what he thinks will work. And that shows with the relationship that's happening at the Wilderness. Because Warren, again, you stand at Saunders Field and you see the position that Warren is actually tasked with. There's a very easy way to sympathize with Warren. It sucks. It's slaughter. It's massacre.
It's not only that, you see a lot of sorry, I can't get the word out. You see lots of things during the war, especially with Grant, where he's got his little favourites.
Right. And that's something that happens at the Wilderness.
Look at what's his name? Rosecrans. He can't get into it. He can't get into his little circle, so he sort of pushes him aside a little bit. I know he's not a great general, but I'm just saying, if you're not in his little inner circle, you're not. You know what I mean?
But I mean, I think in zeroing back to the Wilderness real quick, Darren, I'm sorry to zero right back into
it. It's all right.
But that's what I'm saying. Warren, and I'm not making a full defense on Warren because there are things I don't agree with, but I do think Warren gets kind of a shit end stick when it comes to what happens at Wilderness and Spotsylvania. Because the only thing he's used to when it comes to indirect dealings with an army commander is the fact that he successfully helped to call off perhaps one of the greatest slaughters the Army of the Potomac could have potentially undergone. And so he sees these same things almost playing out. And, of course, it does play out to where Saunders Field is in absolute repeat at Laurel Hill. It's the same scenario almost verbatim.
Yeah, Fifth Corps got gutted.
Right. Wow, dude, they got screwed at Laurel Hill. But he just endured what happened at Saunders Field. So, he's basically doing is referring back to, hey, Meade, remember that time at Mine Run where you almost slaughtered our army and I stopped you? Yeah, you should come here to Saunders Field and see what's about to happen again. That's exactly what's going through Warren's mind. He's like, okay, this isn't good.
Well, I think
a lot of Confederates up there, and I don't know the exact position they're in. Maybe just running right into our enemy isn't the move we need to do.
Yeah.
Warren's also a topographical engineer.
Yeah.
To dismiss any thought that this man has as to what the ground's going to play into when it comes to the overall aspect of the outcome of this battle is ludicrous in my mind. But again, I'm Monday night quarterbacking the shit out of this right now. But that's something that I've always thought about, is that Warren maybe isn't this like, oh, I don't want to attack because this is he knows what's gonna happen. We give him the credit on Little Round Top. We give him the credit at Mine Run. So all of a sudden, why do we shit on him because he's at Wilderness? Oh, that's right. Because Grant knows all, and Grant's going to be the one to tell everybody how everything needs to happen. But that's that one instance, or the two instances that I'll point out, that Grant needs to back up and let some of these guys that have been here against Lee do their thing for a minute. Because Warren could have changed how Saunders Field happened.
Yeah.
100%.
I think one problem,
I don't want to go into that too much, but
that you get to really see at the start of the 64 campaign is that the Army has now gotten to a size where one commander can't make all the decisions. Grant has a vision, but what he's thinking in his head and what it looks like on the ground are two different things. And I think that's where, and you don't have that problem. Well, you still have that problem even now in modern times, but it's mitigated somewhat by radios and all the different communication systems out there.
Of course.
Back then it was courier, back and forth, unless a commander came down and said, hey, what do you actually look at?
And Daryl, you'll know this better than I do because you play the game more than I do, but I've slaughtered an entire corps just using a courier system over there in Scourge of War, and that's not oh my God. I lost an entire corps to freaking people like Sheridan, and that was a very bad day.
Yeah, I mean, it started at the Wilderness, and then you get into it, I would say Warren was good up until right before Cold Harbor. And then he just kind of decided, I'm going to do what I want. That's where it kind of like...
Hold on, John Bruce, who helped found Unfiltered with me, just commented, don't talk about Reynolds without me. He is #over.
What? Now, granted...
You want to talk about spicy content?
That's I'm not one to start nothing, but those are fighting words. I mean...
Well, wait, hold on. What's your basis on Reynolds being so great?
His coming up from brigade. Now, granted, he fell asleep and got captured.
You and I have read the same book too, so we're on the same.
Yes, we've read many of the same books. I would say, now he could have done great things at Fredericksburg.
He could have done. That's the thing. He got captured, and he had to have the citizens of Fredericksburg. We had to have rebels petition for his release. What Union commander has ever had to have rebels petition?
Well, no, I'm talking at the actual Battle of Fredericksburg.
I know he didn't. He got captured before that.
Yeah,
he got captured during the commander of a depot behind the lines when he got captured.
I think
that's a problem in my mind.
I will say this, and again, it's just like Stonewall Jackson. Why is Reynolds great? Because he died leading a successful defense,
just like,
and that's how he's now. If he had not died there, who knows how the battle would have gone and how he would be remembered.
Mm-hmm.
He might be remembered as the incompetent boob who, should have never been a general.
Hey, hold on.
I said he could have been great at Fredericksburg.
Yeah, he was nowhere on the field. He said he would have been great. He wasn't.
He
on
had
the field,
opportunity.
That's a problem too.
First Corps had the opportunity to bust through. Now, granted, you had the whole Grand Division's garbage, but
John, you're in this group right now. You're our Gettysburg expert. I need to hear your thoughts on Reynolds.
Reynolds win.
Overall, what do you think about John Reynolds?
I think Reynolds gets the short end of the stick in the Antietam campaign because he's sent to the Pennsylvania militia, and he's very upset about that. That pisses him off.
Reynolds was good at
organization.
Second Manassas.
He was good at Second Manassas.
Yes, he was good there. And that's probably why they were like, hey, we got these farmers that don't know what they're doing, and they've got flintlocks. Can you go help them out? And I know a little bit about it simply because one of my relatives was in that militia group. And it's like, okay, one of my relatives is supposedly commanded by, or supposed to be commanded by Reynolds. I just think that, for the longest time, as far as the Gettysburg campaign is concerned, and that lead up, so many years we had heard that Reynolds took the initiative and went to Gettysburg because he had the thought of the crossroads being important, and he, basically saw what was in front and was like, we need to hold this position and everything else. That's Kent Masterson Brown's book puts that away. It puts that to bed for good. And we know what was in his pocket. We know that letter was in his pocket saying that, this is what you're supposed to do. And he did. He carried out his orders. Why is he a good commander? Because he follows orders. He's good at that.
That's what I said about Upton, man.
Pretty much, he's good at orders. What else is he supposed to do? Is he supposed to carry the colors in next, and we're going to say he's not overrated? I mean,
what did Grant say? You expect me to do a double somersault and land on your left flank, right flank?
Land in your rear.
Land. It's right. Land in the rear. Yeah. That's basically what he's having happen here.
Right.
That's what you're expecting out of Reynolds, but Reynolds can't do that.
I would have loved to have seen Reynolds at Antietam. I would have think that would have solidified his legacy.
There would have been a severe aggressiveness to the Union Army of the Potomac in '62 if Reynolds had been at Antietam.
Yeah. And I think that would have solidified him because he and Meade are going through all this almost together, where one is, the other is. And you see that until the end of Reynolds' life. So I would have really, that's the one thing that I wish we could have seen play out is Reynolds' leadership at Antietam and how he would have done that, or how he would have progressed in the field. I think his legacy would have been solidified by being there a little bit more. And I think he knew that. He knew, he doesn't, like when Eisenhower in the First World War has to be stuck on stateside. He doesn't get to go overseas. It's a later transition with his legacy. Reynolds is that way too, but he doesn't get to have that later transition. He gets killed, and then the mythology of Reynolds and what he did or supposedly did in his mind to get to Gettysburg and cut off that route. We lived with that for years and years, and I think that we have to stop deifying these guys.
Oh, for sure.
And that's how we get the overrated people quickly is we deify these guys. We say, oh, this guy's infallible. This guy doesn't make a mistake. Well, he's, Grant messed up here. Well, great. He's a human. He's going to mess up. He's not a John Pope.
Right.
Okay? That's a mess up. That's a major mess up.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it all goes back to the idea that we deify these guys so much, and we armchair general because that's what we naturally want to do. We're like, hey, how would this have worked out if, or what would happen? Mm-hmm. I think that is one of those things that I've tried to fight against, and I know a lot of others have, including you, Ty, and Daz, and others. And I think we're coming to terms with how fallible these commanders were, who are for the first time leading a division, leading a brigade, leading a corps. They have no idea because they're used to leading the next rank down, whatever that is. Right. They're used to being division, and now they're corps, and they're like, what the hell is going on? Reynolds was in my opinion, he was a great corps commander. He was good at wing command. He was good at all that. He was natural at that. I don't know how he would have been as the commander of the Army of the Potomac, though. I'm not sure about that, but
I don't know. And it's almost a good thing that Meade probably took command.
Yeah.
And when Grant comes east, Meade knows how the great people I've met in my life know how to be second. They know when it's time to take a back seat and say, you know what, you know more than I do. I'm going to sit back and relax. Meade does that with Grant. he's like, all right.
He offers his resignation like day one.
Yeah.
Grant shows up, resignation's in hand.
Yeah, exactly, Daryl. Humility. When someone has the humility, that's strength right there. You know.
Well, yeah. I mean, you look at remember after Gettysburg, after the Confederates escape, and Lincoln writes he writes a telegram that wasn't supposed to be sent or something like that, where he's complaining that you could have just you could have beat them.
Mm-hmm.
And he, it doesn't get. I can't remember what the whole deal with it was. It's right there at the front of my tip of my tongue, but I can't remember. But he tells his wife, "I should resign." And it's I think Meade get out of every Civil War general gets a short stick.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, he's definitely not a John Pope. That's I'm a second Manassas fan, and God, just the name John Pope makes me want to drink.
You're not a Pope fan.
No, I hate Pope.
I know you hate Pope. I just had to say Pope. Not a Pope fan, are you?
Pope is equivalent to your Phil Sheridan.
Don't get me started on the.
And whereas I think Phil Sheridan was a outstanding cavalry officer from the infantry.
So, if you know anything about the Unfiltered Historian, the only topic we don't talk about is Phil Sheridan.
We need to have a Phil Sheridan episode, I think.
No.
Darren, what do you think?
Well, Nate would definitely want to join in, wouldn't he?
I'm sure he would.
I think we should. I think we should collaborate and do a like what I do with Gary Owen, but we should do it on Phil Sheridan in the Valley.
Ooh.
Because I got to poke people with the stick here. It's kind of like,
hey, Ty, we could go up to Winchester.
Yeah. I got plenty of spots up there. We can just do a panel discussion on
Sheridan,
on the merits of
Uncle Phil.
Little man syndrome, they called it, didn't they?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He didn't know how to be a second. That's just
no, not at all.
Make way for Sheridan.
Yeah. Oh man, that is bad. That's
very bad.
But so going back to Reynolds, I look at his death and he died. Probably, if he hadn't died there, who's to say whether history would love him or hate him? But because he died there, he kind of gets put on that same kind of pedestal that Jackson is. If Jackson, people love to say, "Oh, if Jackson had been at Gettysburg, Jackson may have had the same thing that happened to him that happened to Richard Ewell." Richard Ewell was a excellent commander prior to Second Manassas, where he lost his leg. Then he became much more cautious. Who's to say Jackson, who just got to see his daughter for the first time a few months before, wouldn't have reacted the same way? There's no way to know,
Not for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I just know that if Jackson would have made it to Gettysburg, he would have been a pretty stinking deposing.
Yeah, that would have been pretty messy.
That would have been
Thank you, Tar Heels.
Yeah.
Hey, that was some of the best shooting the 20th North Carolina did that day.
18th.
Was it the 18th? I thought it was the 20th.
18th.
Okay, I don't know why.
I just know they're North Carolinians because I know Virginians who still hate North Carolinians.
Yeah, Virginians. I mean, look, as a Virginian, we would. Profession say we, because I can't associate myself with that abomination of what we call the Confederacy. But I will say that as a Virginian, we're not going to shoot the person on our own side.
Well, the North
Carolina. Oops. But here, let me just shed some light on that real quick. One of my favorite things to do about the Jackson wounding is actually give Stonewall a little bit of credit as to why he got fucking bodied 3 times. Let me explain. You have on the opposite side of the turnpike one of my favorite Pennsylvania regiments just because of their sheer tenacity to tie a white stick and think this is how it works. I'm going to talk about Lieutenant Colonel Levi Smith of the 128th PA.
Yes.
God love them. They lose their trenches because Jackson leads his 20,000 men flank attack around the Union and destroys the 11th Corps of the Army of the Potomac. Okay, boom, cool, great, awesome. Thanks, Jax. So we're at this position now where the Union obviously is not in that position anymore. Because when you have 20,000 screaming rednecks with a freaking bayonet pointed at you, I'm honestly going to be hightailing it. They get out of their position, and when they're in their work, Levi Smith is a little pissed off that he no longer has his position. So the remedy to this is to tie a white flag on a stick and go walk into the Confederate trenches and ask who the hell has my position.
And that's what you do, right?
That's exactly what Levi Smith does by himself. He walks over there and says, all right, well, you're not the people I thought it would be here. I'm going to go back to my regiment now. And when you get snagged by your waistband and thrown into your trench, or, their trench now, you're now a prisoner because that's an informal flag of truce. You can't just go be like, oh, cool. All right, 37th North Carolina ammo works? Yeah, bet. 128's about to kick your ass. Watch this. No, it doesn't work like that. So the 128th is a little pissed off now because their commander isn't coming back. So let's send a few more 128th guys over and figure out what's going on. And so when they don't come back, now the rest of the 128th's like, but the rebels are over here like, okay, guys, look, we got people coming over here from that line. Something must be up. But sad story, long story. The 128th is almost entirely captured by like 5 Confederates that scream Stonewall has you surrounded.
I've heard that one. I had to think about it because,
But on the side that the 18th North Carolina is at specifically, when Jackson starts to move on that reconnaissance, which, okay, first of all, any commander that has common sense knows that a reconnaissance like that is stupid and futile. Nonetheless, Jackson does it. The 8th Pennsylvania Cavalry finds this the moment to start materializing from the darkness of the woods, popping shots at the 18th and then melting back into the darkness like it was nothing. You've just now created a trigger-happy line of 18th North Carolinians. So when Jackson's column, or his reconnaissance party, comes out of the woods, dressed in dark blue, dark gray, and you get shot at by those same North Carolinians who just encountered the 8th Pennsylvania Cavalry, you're kind of sitting here in your head saying, well, yeah, no shit, that's kind of what's going to happen. But the insanity to all this is that's the situation that these North Carolinians are faced with on May 2nd of 1862 when they shoot Stonewall. Can you really blame them for shooting him? I leave that for everybody else to ponder and consider, but I do just try to throw that out there. Not that I'm trying to defend the 18th in any way, shape, or form, but at the same time, can you blame them? I mean, you shot Stonewall Jackson.
Well, so, and if you think about it this way, the Virginians got their revenge and totally pissed off, should have totally pissed off, because Longstreet was from Georgia, correct? Or was he from South Carolina? I always get them mixed up.
Shit. If you
I think it depended on what day you asked him.
Neither one of them want to claim it.
Yeah,
but wasn't it the Virginia regiment that shot Longstreet?
12th Virginia Infantry, supposedly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, really...
Those are Mahone's boys. Those are Petersburg guys.
Were they Mahone's? I thought they were...
12th Virginia's Mahone's.
Then how... Okay, I'm reading something about... How the hell did Micah Jenkins get... Was he... Oh...
Longstreet.
Yeah, he was with Longstreet. Because he had a Louisiana brigade, I think.
Right, but he was with Longstreet.
Yeah, okay, that's what it was. Well, so tying back to Reynolds and Chancellorsville, again, if Stonewall Jackson, and this is one of those connect the dots things where everything, could go. All it takes, it's like that Simpson episode where he sneezes and the dinosaurs all die. Stonewall Jackson doesn't get shot. He continues his attack toward, and Ty, I know me and you've talked about it many a time. He continues his attack towards U.S. forward. Who's sitting up there? John Reynolds and George Meade with both their fairly, Reynolds unbloodied corps. Meade, only one division of the 5th Corps had been beat up at the first day, the regulars. So,
Daz, I think the most important question is, what would have happened if we didn't have George Washington?
Well, you got me there.
That was a very appropriate.
That was awesome because you could see go, oh.
Well,
you completely changed the subject. You're evil.
Dad is quiet in this conversation. I just come in like.
Well, I would. If you didn't have George Washington, I would be able to shit easier. No, was it the other way round? I can't remember.
Yes.
One of the two.
What's the saying? I can't remember the saying now.
Nothing makes a British man shit quicker than the sight of George Washington.
That's the one. I got it mixed up.
Yeah.
Anyway, if you don't want to drink tea, that's up to you. Drink what you want.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to say.
Daz is for drinking freedom. Yes. Yeah. Drink what you want.
Drink what you want. You want to drink coffee? Drink coffee. If you want to drink tea,
I'm an American over here indulging in Irish drinks now. All
That's what it was, Stuart. I couldn't remember the whole.
Stuart helped us out here. Stuart said Mahomes' boys shot Longstreet. Micah Jenkins was a South Carolinian general. His men had new dark gray uniforms, so Mahomes' boys shot him too. They thought the South Carolinians were eating.
Wow.
I've actually taken kind of a break from reading Civil War books right now, just because I'm reading about other stuff.
Religious.
I've been reading.
How dare you?
Modern stuff.
That's okay. I'm
BMPs, T-72s,
World War I or Vietnam.
I'm reading modern warfare type stuff.
Okay.
The worst thing that happens to Longstreet is he gets 2 parking spots, doesn't he? And you have to, what is it, 30 minutes?
30-minute time span to
and then someone comes and gives you a ticket.
Yeah.
Funny we're talking a little bit about the wilderness in
that
area, Ty.
Into history. It's so fun.
So I'm actually looking at property that is out in that general area that I would be pretty much surrounded by battlefield, either Chancellorsville or Wilderness, if I was to try and buy one of these properties out there. Oh yeah, I'd love it.
Well, guys, John, I'm glad you're here for this because I want to move into a very special topic. We are on the 159th anniversary of a little battle that happens in Pennsylvania.
Oh, it's only a tiny one.
It's only a tiny one.
Skirmish.
Yeah, only a skirmish.
Oh, the Battle of Fairfield?
Yeah. The burning of Chambersburg in 64, which was...
Yeah,
anyway, that's for another episode because I get angry at that one. Anyways, back to this little tiny skirmish in a town called Gettysburg. We're on day 3.
Yep.
Isn't it so sad?
Well, by this time the battle was over, and it was,
a great day. I mean, a good day for the United States.
Yeah.
Farnsworth's charge is over, right?
It is.
Man.
Yeah.
Another guy that got
screwed. Was a snafu.
Yeah.
Yeah. Talk about.
Well, where I want to start, I love July 1st, but let's just go straight in. Raw dog, July 2nd.
Wow.
I could talk July 2nd all day.
July 2nd, the favourite part of July 2nd for me is Dan Sickles. I find it fascinating. And so instead of actually talking, because everyone knows what happens, he goes out too far, we know that. But what happens, and this is a little what happened, because I've got a couple of experts here that know more about it than me. What happens if he doesn't go out to that position?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Because do you think that the momentum that Barksdale's men have got, do you think they're gonna roll up that flank?
So I think so this is where
standing in the way.
So
I know you've got the 5th Corps in reserve, but do you know what I mean?
Let's think about. So are you talking? Dan Sickles does not move forward at all. Stays in his assigned position, tied to the round top. Well, that's the funny thing is because the Confederates, if he hadn't moved forward, they wouldn't have known he was there, would they? All the reconnaissance said that there was no troops there. Mm-hmm. So Longstreet and McLaws's attack, and then Hood's in echelon behind him would have had their flank to the Third Corps.
Mm-hmm.
Again, once they're committed attacking up Emmitsburg Road, if all of a sudden now the Third Corps advances and is enfilading them on their flank, just all the troops during the war, troops on your flank, that was like the quickest way to route a force was just to have troops appear on that flank because you were just going to get slaughtered.
Mm-hmm. Essentially, yeah.
So I think it would have been that could have been a really interesting situation. But I defer to the experts.
Yes, you two, please converse. I'm on July 3. I spent my time on July 3 talking about cannonading and
also
positions, but
I understand the reason why he does move down to that position is because of what happens at Chancellorsville.
That one,
he has to give up that high ground, and he doesn't. And this time, he sees that little knoll out there, and he says, "Let's move forward."
So John, I need to do a video from Hazel Grove very soon.
Well,
we need to do a video from Hazel Grove and Fairview soon.
Oh yeah,
Ty, we definitely do because I just did the Jim Hessler tour, and we talked about that a lot. Because he's a big
about that a lot because that is big fucking proving ground, and I try to prove that to everyone. I'm like, that is where Sickles gained his merit as a fighting fantastic general.
Yes, Sickles fought very well at Chancellorsville.
Oh my God, he did, dude. My grandfather was out shooting rebels,
but I don't think
with Sickles. I love it.
Part of me thinks he learned. He realized, hey, if the Confederates can get artillery, they're going to blow the crap out of you. But I don't know if that's what went through his head there. There's no document saying this is why
there's a damn flank attack happening, and I'm trying to position troops in order to stop it. And this commander over here, who's sitting here schmoozing on a pillar at the Hook or the Chancellor House, is not letting me do anything about it. Mm-hmm. That's what's going through Sickles' head at that moment. If you want me to,
if you think about it, Sickles thought he was kind of doing a flank attack on Jackson
but he was, and he successfully carried that out with his sharpshooters against those damn Georgians at the end of the line. He chased the 23rd Georgians,
his whole division. Out. Yeah,
they didn't.
Not just the sharpshooters.
They didn't just stop at the furnace like the tour stops will tell you.
They
go all the way to the Welford House.
Yeah.
It's a very sizable attack that's happening. You have Spotsylvania County residents, rebels, running scared and getting captured prisoner for hiding inside of this furnace when the Berdan sharpshooters come knocking on their door. Like, Sickles knows what's up. Sickles could have been a Sherman if he really wanted to. He already... he was like, okay, screw it. You want to go? You want to sit here and flank me? Cool. I'm going to take out your industries and I'm going to take out your men.
I think too, to Daz's point about if Sickles would have stayed in his position, Darrell's absolutely right. If he would have stayed in that position, he could have flanked Hood, McClaw, as everyone else is going up.
For sure.
That would have been no problem. However, the problem is, where does he deploy his artillery?
Yeah, he has no place.
He's got no place in the original line of action to deploy that artillery significantly against anyone in his front because either it's the higher ground in the front that's going to make that shot go too high, or two, when you go in that saddle on the north side of Little Round Top as you're heading up the federal line, what was supposed to be the actual line where Sickles was supposed to be, that's all rocky in there.
Yeah,
and you can't deploy artillery in there at all. So where's he going to deploy his artillery at? He's thinking about that too, and he's down there. Most likely, he's saying, well, this is pretty much shitty terrain for artillery. You can't put too much on Little Round Top other than a couple guns pointing due west.
And getting them up to the top of
there, right, is another thing. And the other thing is, a lot of people don't realize what his intelligence, what basically Army of Potomac intelligence at that time, what that intelligence says about where the flank of the Army of Northern Virginia is. Those sharpshooters are in the U.S. sharpshooters are in Pitzer Woods. There's no one there.
Right. They're not far away either.
No.
I mean, those sharpshooters that are able to penetrate the lines, they're only catching the Alabamians and the Texans as they're moving from that circuitous route. Yeah. So they've already successfully completed this huge route around to get in position to attack the positions they're going to attack later. Devilton, Wheatfield, Peachtree.
Yeah, and Sickles
yada.
Nobody knows anything about it until Warren gets up there on the round top and has sees that shell hit over there.
So those people over there, there's a lot of folks right there. Let's do something. I mean, but it's too late at that point.
And Meade pulled Buford off the flank.
Yeah. That was a big mistake there. Well, it wasn't necessarily Buford. Wasn't Pleasanton supposed to replace him though?
Yes, Buford was supposed to pull, which he did. Pleasanton didn't come in. Like that was just in that moving, one unit back and our unit is moving up. Mm-hmm. The fact was that the other unit hadn't moved up when Buford pulled off. And that also tells you when someone's just pulling off the line like that, they don't think anything's around there. They're like, well, there's nothing here. Reinforcements will come up or replacements will come up. They'll take over. Let's get back here because we need to do something with the horses and everything else. So they are that comfortable on that flank. And, Sickles getting up there and Buford pulling away off the left flank. Now Sickles is in the air. And
I wonder...
That's where it is. But Sickles believes that Reb line, if you're standing at the peach orchard, he believes that Reb line is about 30 degrees to your north. Like if you just turn like 20 degrees and 25 degrees and look to the northwest at Pitzer Woods, he thinks that could be the flank of because he hears sporadic skirmishing. And he's like, oh, they must be there. So if you take that position where he's at, and that's the flank of the Army of Northern Virginia, you're off their flank. It just so happened that the Army of Northern Virginia was off his flank.
I was just getting ready to ask that. It's because thinking about the situation, that would be, think about as the Army of the Potomac as a whole, they kind of were a bit traumatized by Chancellorsville. Chancellorsville was they were mad. They were really mad, but it was also one of those experiences where everything should have went one way and it totally didn't. Mm-hmm. Like you were saying, maybe that was what was going through his head is, hey, I'll get on their flank and then I can counter whatever they do, because he saw the shit show that was, the 11th Corps getting rolled up.
Yeah. And if he's on the flank of the Army of Northern Virginia and he's on an elevated position, what more can you ask for?
Yeah.
It's an artillery plateau. It's the Grove all over again.
Yeah. That's why I try to say, like, there is such a relevance when it comes to Hazel Grove and Fairview and Gettysburg, especially with Sickles, because he's got the visual plateau that you just mentioned. He's got that. I mean, it's handed to him. He walks up in his position. Holy shit! Anyone common sense can tell you this ground is exponentially important to artillery.
Mm-hmm. It is.
It doesn't take a genius.
If he was on the flank.
Sure, but you're also not preparing for a situation such as that.
I agree.
Right.
So in typical military terms, when you're given a position like Hazel Grove and Fairview, and you're able to amass the amount of artillery and also defend the amount of artillery that you're able to defend in Fairview and build the lunette position you have, you've got damn near an impregnable position for the situation you believe is unfolding behind you. But let me revert back to something that just blew my mind a couple of days ago. The FBI hostage negotiation team came into the visitor center. And I got to talking to the gentleman that was leading this tour. He's the instructor of the FBI negotiation team at this point in time. He's teaching at Fairview the importance of not relying on such a formidable choice or a position, because anything can happen and destroy that idea. Well, what happens at Fairview? You have this impregnable position. You have this absolutely just tremendously defensible position, but it snaps in half like that. Why? Because you get assaulted on all sides, which you didn't prepare for. You prepared to defend what's exactly in front of you. to a point where nothing's going to live. What does Longstreet say? A chicken couldn't live in that field, and we have. Well, sure. That's what's happening here with the Union Army at Fairview and Hazel Grove. But what you're not preparing for is the fact that these dirty rebels are going to come running out from the sides of the freaking woods and flank the shit out of you. And
it wasn't even just that, though, Ty. It's also, again, going back to Henry Hunt, the whole Henry Hunt debacle.
Sure.
You look at what he did at Gettysburg. A battery comes out, a new battery goes in. They didn't do that at Fairview. So as a battery or a gun went out of action,
it was out of action.
Nothing went up to replace it. Well, initially that's not going to be a big deal.
But also, Daryl,
weight of numbers will eventually.
Was in position to put in Fairview?
I think Fairview is a bad position, in my opinion.
Initially, it wasn't, but you touched on it. It's kind of like a yes and no situation. At the moment, if they had the reserve artillery, it could equate to what we have at Gettysburg. But at Chancellorsville, you have divided your artillery because you have to lose some in the vicinities of Salem Church, Fredericksburg, to keep guard over there. So you don't have the force concentrated that you have at Gettysburg. So really, Hunt was limited because his artillery was divided.
Hunt wasn't even in charge of the artillery, though.
Which is also something to really consider as well. You're right. Hunt was not. But when it comes to artillery at Chancellorsville, I do give some leeway when it comes to trying to judge any artillerists by any means when it comes to the Union Army. Because, again, just like the Confederates, they were severely divided in force. The cavalry was nowhere to be seen because Hooker thought Stoneman had a better chance farther south towards Richmond, cutting those lines, leaving his forces at Chancellorsville pretty scant of cavalry. It's lucky you even have instances of the 8th Pennsylvania doing what they do against the 18th North Carolina. Back to the whole situation, though, that also plays into the artillery aspect. Your artillery is not a whole concentrated force of artillery because you have some aspects of that lingering back at Fredericksburg and the Heights on Stafford.
What I would say,
so it's kind of a snafu in that regard.
But the Army as a whole was so. The Confederates may have been two separate parts at Chancellorsville, but they were still working in conjunction with each other.
Yeah, there was
that's what the Army of the Potomac wasn't doing.
And you know what? To speak on that too, the only time I'm going to give Lee high praise is in this one assault on May 3rd. You know what? He is ably and successfully in a position to where he concentrates 3 divisions to attack or 3 corps to attack at the same time. It's a 3 corps pronged attack.
You mean which day?
Third day, May 3rd.
Oh, Gettysburg.
No, Chancellorsville.
There was only 2 corps.
2 corps, excuse me. 3. It was
you're confusing me. I'm like, what?
No, I confused myself. You're right. 2 corps attack at one point.
Well, yeah, between him and Jebster. Yeah.
Well, not Hill because Hill's kind of out.
That's that Irish beer talk, and they always think they have more numbers.
What's his name? Pinkerton was just over here in the window. I know you guys couldn't see him on screen, but he was off-screen whispering in my ear.
So Fairview.
He told me there were 100,000 rebels out front.
I think Fairview isn't it? It's slightly lower, which again isn't. If you've got numbers of artillery pieces, isn't necessarily a showstopper. Right. It's not until you have guns getting taken out of action and not getting replaced that I think because if they had been cycled through like at Gettysburg, I think the artillery fight would have gone differently.
You think it would have gone differently? You think it wouldn't have been a cannonade on July 3rd?
No, I'm talking about at Chancellorsville.
At Chancellorsville, okay. Had to catch
it would have gone similar to what happened at Gettysburg, in my opinion.
I gotta.
No, go ahead.
I gotta go back to. I'm still thinking about Sickles, and I'm wondering, based on what Daz was asking and that what we were talking about, where, Third Corps would have just gone up. Basically up Hawks Ridge, up the wheat field, and flanked. Would we have ever heard of Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain?
No, not at all.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, but again, the thing I like to point, I like. Don't get me wrong, I love the story of it and everything, and it's amazing. The charge is amazing, but the thing is with Chamberlain, he's a writer, and he writes himself into the story, and you're going to make yourself that hero.
Actually, what was he? What was it? I'm trying to remember what they says in the movie. He was a teacher. What was he a teacher of?
Rhetoric.
Rhetoric. Yes.
Yeah.
So he's a good bullshitter.
Yeah, exactly.
But then, of course,
rhetoric.
Killer Angels immortalizes him, doesn't it? And then the movie
between that and the Ken Burns series,
And you think about it, how many people who aren't Civil War history fans could tell you who Strong Vincent was, though?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, back in the day,
my fucking dude too. I love Strong Vincent.
Back in the around the 125th anniversary of Gettysburg and all that, I remember being there as a young kid. You didn't talk about Chamberlain. You talked about Gouverneur Warren. Warren was the hero of Little Round Top, and that was the way it was in the 1988, 1990. Then the movie comes out based on Shara's book, and now it's everything Chamberlain. You don't even really hear a lot about Strong Vincent. He was always kind of like literally pushed to the side of the hill. It was like Warren's statue, and they're simulating this or making you perceive that this is the guy who carried the day because his statue's right there. It doesn't matter if it's his post with the Signal Corps guys or not. It's just that historical memory can play with you in that way. And so for years, because he was the guy who got up there and saw what he saw, he was the hero of Round Top because no one would have been there without Warren. And that's the way we perceived that for years. And then that perception changes based on Shara's book, which, many people read, but not as many as would read it after the movie Gettysburg comes out.
Right.
And then before that is the Ken Burns series. Those two things back to back in quick succession really pushed Chamberlain on the map. So, it's kind of a really wild thing in how popular culture impacts.
The popular culture thing, Ty.
Yeah. That's the thing.
Well, what's
he
funny?
Wrote a very serious article about that.
Yeah, he did. What's also funny about that, and we were talking about this. So, game me and Ty play. It's called Scourge of War Gettysburg.
And by the way, I got my Wi-Fi back, so hopefully once I can figure out the kinks, we might be back on for that.
Okay.
Working on that now.
What's funny is one of the guys I play online with, he actually helped develop the game. And the problem is they had people that knew Civil War history and tactics, and then they had other guys. And those other guys, all they knew about the Civil War was the movie Gettysburg. So they thought, oh, well, Chamberlain, they took the movie Gettysburg as gospel. And even when I first started, so as a kid, I loved the Civil War, but never was specific on a thing. When I started getting back into the Civil War, I was watching Gettysburg religiously. And then I started doing more reading about it and realized, oh crap, wait, hold on, that's not, it's historical fiction, based on fact. And that's a problem is a lot of people don't realize that.
Actually, that brings up a point for me because when I got back into it 2 years ago, I listened for the first time to Jeff Shara's book because I wanted to finish. So I did it on Audible instead. I wanted to finish I wanted to do the last measure, So I'd seen God's Journey and seen Gettysburg. I wanted to finish it off on my. And what actually came out of it is I don't actually like historical fiction. I wanted the truth. I didn't want the made up stuff. So
I've never
pushed
read
me away from that stuff. And I try and actually now stay away from stuff like that because I want to know the real stuff. I don't want to know the made up stuff, if you know what I mean, even though it's based on the real thing.
Fun fact, Tuesday I'll be down at VMI. I'll take a picture of the outside of the room where Stonewall Jackson stayed at.
Okay.
Nice.
That'd be cool.
We're dropping our daughter off.
Anyway, going back to the second day, There's other factors, isn't there? You know, I mean, Longstreet, does he drag his heels a little bit because he doesn't want to do what Lee's asked him to do?
Ooh, Civil War.
Yeah, that's a great one.
5 brought up a good point. Pop culture is important to history, but it also has a detrimental effect on how people perceive history. To them, that is how it was.
Yeah,
he's not wrong.
No, he's true. It's accurate.
For those that have sold their souls on the History Channel's Civil War video game, I am very sorry for you, but I promise you, Chamberlain didn't have 6 Gatling guns to use on the board.
What?
Oh yeah, in the game, yeah, straight up, they say that Chamberlain's running out of ammunition as you're like fucking hand cranking a Gatling gun the entire time, just mowing down rebels like it's not.
I've got that game.
It's an extreme amount of fun.
I have that game. I think.
Play it. You snipe rebels, and then all of a sudden you just crank a Gatling gun and mow them down.
That's just wrong. Wrong.
Screaming like rah rah rah, and you're just like fucking mowing them down the entire.
Sounds like my kind of day, right there.
It's right, dude. Like, I mean, fantastic. I can stand a little round top.
Can you start doing Cephomore to call in the AC-130 gunship as well?
I mean, it's like that. You might as well just like tactical nuke these guys. MOAB all the way.
Second day is my favorite day, probably of all, because first day is great, and last time I was up at Gettysburg, I did I like that's why I found myself is like when I go up there, I like to focus on a day and hit all the wickets for that day.
Look what's going on in the second as well. They really give them a real thump, don't they? You know, I mean, Colts Hill goes on all night, doesn't it? Colts Hill doesn't actually finish till early hours of the morning. Well, it finishes at 10 in the morning from the 3rd, I think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And the Confederates actually get very, very close to breaking that line because it's so dark. They don't know, you know. And then you've got the poor Iron Brigade that have been shoved it up there as well. And like, go and have a rest up there. And then they end up getting battered again, don't they? After the railway cut, you know. It's like it's such an interesting day.
I tell you what, when we're back to July 2nd, like, and again, I hate this what ifs, but since we're just entertaining what ifs, my favorite what if is what happens if the Union Army dropped in Moab on the Confederates as they were charging across Triangular Field and Warfield Ridge.
Oh my god!
I don't think there was enough black powder to make one.
No, but I'm just saying, like a Moab right in the middle of them. I'm like, man, that is.
Let me say this though. I don't think that I think that the Longstreet stall thing that we've heard about for years is that post-war thing.
Lost cause,
100%.
And justification for their own failure.
And the
Gustavo asked a real good question. We'll have to talk about it.
And the idea that they just went out there blindly and started marching. Those guys who went out there scouting were the ones who told them, "Oh, we went this way," and they went there, and they're like, "Wait a minute, we're out in the open now. We got to go back this way."
Well, so I'm glad you just said that because Gustavo did ask me a question. About July 2, Captain Johnston's reconnaissance is a mystery. Where did he go in reality? Did he reach LRT? Fuck.
Guess we're still trying to figure out where the hell that guy went.
Yeah,
Jim Hessler talks about that on one of his podcasts once, where that's their whole focus was. Where did this guy go? And the whole flank march. And it's like, how did you go there when there were troops there? So obviously, someone somewhere lied or wasn't where they thought they were. It's hard. I don't think we'll ever figure that one out.
I've often said that I don't know, we'll never know. It's so many theories now. Like you could ask Bobby Lee 2 months later where you think that guy went, and Robert E. Lee wouldn't be able to tell you where the guy went. But I really think that he said he went so far. He said he went up to Little Round Top. He said he was on the Little Round Top and all that. I almost wonder it's just a theory, that will never be proven and I'll never be right. But in my mind, it's like, I wonder if that guy went up Big Round Top. Because he says he didn't see anybody and he got to the top and there was nobody around like his right or anything like that. The only way that he's getting up some kind of rocky hill or a hill with rocks on it and not seeing that is most likely Big Round Top in my mind. Because they have the fog is still settling into the valley at that time.
Yeah.
So if someone says, well, maybe he got to Devil's Den. Well, if you got to Devil's Den, you're going to probably see that hill in front of you, or at least the valley, and then see that there's a climb there.
Yeah.
So I've always wondered if maybe this guy went up like the southeastern or southwestern side of Big Round Top.
Yeah.
And he's like, and it's a hill. It's a hill. And he's like, I got to the top of a hill and no one was there.
I've never gone up Big Round Top. Is it passable for, because he was mounted, could you take a horse up that?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure, like, because the underbrush has completely changed, and we got to think about that too. It would be damn hard to get a horse up Little Round Top.
It would
from the western phase.
Yeah,
it would be very tough.
Thing is, you've got to imagine it without the roads and that now as well, haven't you?
Oh yeah.
It's really hard to imagine.
He could have gone maybe in the saddle between the two hills. He could have gone on the south side of Round Top.
Yeah, because
wasn't gone to Devil's Den and he saw a drop off and he stopped. We don't really know.
Wasn't 12th Corps somewhere on the northern? Who spent the night on Little Round Top? Wasn't it the 12th Corps, or was it the third? I thought the 3rd Corps came in, but they weren't specifically on one spot or the other. I'm trying to remember. It's been so long since I focused on that.
I remember that on the morning of the 2nd, they talk. Meade's son talks about finding Sickles asleep behind the Round Top.
Okay.
So I think 3rd Corps, at least the front of the column of 3rd Corps, is coming up in that area. That's what I remember. I could be.
But didn't they come up? They came up Emmitsburg Road and took a right and went in.
Yeah, because he's coming from Emmitsburg.
Yeah. Whereas. Well, I remember
be there.
Well, that was the other controversy. Is Sickles, was supposed to take. That's one thing I do remember. Sickles' corps was supposed to take over the position of one of the other corps. Like I said, I think it might be the 12th Corps.
Yeah, before they move up towards.
Yeah, and then before they moved up north. And the problem is 12th Corps had already moved out by the time Sickles tried to move his troops up into the area.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah. And then that's why he's like, where do you want me to put my line?
Yeah.
And what part of the line goes where? And then that leads into what Daz was saying earlier about the terrain impeding him staying there. And what if he would have stayed there? Well, he's just like, I guess you want me in this spot. I'm going to go here, and then sees what's in front of him. But yeah, I would love to know, Gustavo, where Captain Johnston went.
Thing is, for me, when I come over in August, because when I went to Gettysburg last time, I didn't understand the battle properly. So I want to go and stand in that position, and I want to, where he does settle in the end, because the only way you ever understand it is by standing there.
Yeah,
totally. I want to look at it and I want to try and vision it myself.
Which position, Daz? The Sickles?
So the position that Sickles decides to
move to
settle on out there on the beech orchard.
Okay.
Yeah. You will. I know some people who, like, I can tell right away, some people who have this hard line about Sickles and they've never stood there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you really need to stand there and think about where you believe the enemy is and all that. And I am not like a person that's like a diehard defender of really anybody in the war. Everyone's fallible. That's what I've said.
Sure.
But
totally agree.
When you see just people who are hard lined into it, and it's like, have you walked it? Have you been there? And then they're like, well, no, I just read what someone wrote. And it's kind of like, well, you got to really walk it. You got to see it. You got to feel it. And you can feel that. I think it's a 15 or 20 foot difference over that series from where he was supposed to be as you gradually go out toward Emmitsburg Road. I think it's like a 20-foot incline by the end at Emmitsburg Road. So it's an amazing difference, and you can't see it when you're standing on Low Round Top. It looks flat. or it looks like, it might be just a
Houck's
little
Ridge
bit.
blocks like most of it too, doesn't it?
Pardon?
Houck's Ridge is really what's blocking most of it, right?
Yeah,
that was a problem.
Yeah, that is a problem.
Stand in front of Little Round Top, you can't see anything until they're on you. When they come over Houck's Ridge, it's over.
Yep.
You can see out towards Triangular Field. That's where you have. So then that's what I think a lot of visitors get misconstrued.
But that's the southern.
You can see that's only part of the assault.
Yeah.
Right. There is a whole separate assault happening from Houck's Ridge that ends up sweeping over and, obviously encroaching Little Round Top. So when you have this assault happening, you can only see a portion of it as it's moving. You don't see what's happening behind that ridge there. That ridge definitely does block.
Well, and then
touching on that,
add in just the simple gun smoke, the black powder smoke.
That
visibility is crap.
Mm-hmm. It's shit. You don't see anything.
Yeah.
The other thing, Daryl, and you guys, that I think would be a great thing though to think about is, as Dad said earlier, what would have happened if Sickles would have stayed there? If that attack, Hood and McLaws would have unfolded like Daryl said earlier, and like was supposed to be done up the Emmitsburg Road, Sickles is in a position where he could surprise the hell out of them.
Yep.
So it's not only you're blinded by what the enemy's doing, they're blinded by what you're doing. It goes both ways. It's a two-way street. Yep. You don't know what Sickles is doing down that gully, and Sickles doesn't know what's going on above him unless he has skirmishers or scouts or anything like that. It's a perfect place to deploy a surprise attack on a flank.
Oh yeah, and he was tied in to the Second Corps to his north.
Yeah.
So there wasn't a flank hanging in the air. So it's one of those ones where I don't hear many people talk about what if Sickles had stayed in place and how would it have gone. Like we talked, he just wouldn't have artillery. But if it was in the woods there, it's an infantry fight anyway.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean he could have sprung that attack around the loop there.
Oh yeah.
And he could have rolled up there, let that flank go by and get to like the Sherfy house, and then he could have done his own Jackson attack. It's uphill, it's tough, but it could work.
We know he obviously does take that position. Mm-hmm. Now, when Barksdale comes through, do they know that they're going to be there? Do they already know that Sickles is there?
Well, was Barksdale?
Who was the first one to come through and
Barksdale wasn't the lead element, was it? It was Kershaw, I thought.
Oh, right, okay.
Kershaw, Sams.
Yeah, okay.
Those guys.
But did they know that they were there?
They did once they started moving. I remember there's a big McLaws raised Holy Hell and got Longstreet to come out and say, look, how am I supposed to do my attack? They're there. And that's when they realized, hey, the plan went to shit.
We got to do something else.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And Longstreet and all those guys said after the war, Sickles broke up the attack.
Yeah.
And
he's like a roadblock, wasn't he? They call it the Union roadblock.
He's a thorn in their side.
Going back to your point where you mentioned the flank march. Mm-hmm. Flank march didn't become this big controversy until after General Lee had died and the whole lost cause thing really came about. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, so since we're on July 2nd, we're ending July 2nd going into the beginnings of July 3rd. I'm going to start out, if you guys don't mind, with a quote, actually. I have this wonderful compilation of quotes here, and I'm going to start from the cannonading of July 3rd. Before I get into that, we'll explain a little backstory. So on July 2nd, obviously, Lee has been able to attack places like the Wheat Field, places like the Round Top, places like the Peach Orchard and Culp's Hill. But the thing he didn't have a lot of success with, maybe a little, was the center of the Union line. He's basically attacked everything, but there has been some demonstrations against the center, and it is shown and proven to be a little weaker. But instances will play out, obviously, on July 3rd, to where the center is bolstered, tremendously bolstered, by the way, for those that know the spoiler alert, Confederates lose Gettysburg, just to start that out. But there's a tremendous bolstering to the center. And so much so that Lee wants to soften up the lines, similar to we'll see in later wars in World War II, like Iwo Jima, and just these ideas of softening up the works or the lines or the positions that are out there. I just heard a badoot. That means somebody else has joined us. Let's add them in for our last few minutes here. We have Rich Heisler out of Civil War, Seattle, now on live.
Nice.
Rich,
Yes.
up
Good
here.
evening.
We're about
He looks like he's getting ready to game. He's got his hat on. He's got
I
his
know.
Well, yeah, I just walked in the door from doing tours all day, so
Oh, dude, that's a great day then.
Yeah, I was concerned I wasn't going to catch up with you guys, so I just pulled off my wet shoes and ran into the studio and turned on the computer. So my jacket's still on, my hat's still on, my socks are still wet.
Wow.
It was 56 degrees and raining today on my tour.
Oh, so it's like being in England. No,
well, folks, if
yes.
you guys don't appreciate
it's always
anything,
sunny here.
this man has shown commitment to a T. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to hear you guys are going to be wrapping it up kind of soon, because then I can get to the other stuff.
9 o'clock was our tentative time. If you happen to spill over with conversations past 9 o'clock, it's okay.
Okay.
We won't tell anybody.
Yeah, don't tell anybody, but just
take your socks off. Stay a while.
Yeah.
As long as he's not smell-o-vision, we'll be all right.
That's right.
Yeah.
I don't want to see your toes. Just take
Yeah, I don't do feet. Sorry.
No, all right.
Yeah.
That makes a whole bunch of fire.
John, don't bring OnlyFans into the chat.
This isn't my own.
Hey, a Civil War OnlyFans would be the shit. Like, hey, check out my musket, and just like,
You don't know what I'm gonna do on there. Just you have to subscribe
That's
to
right.
find out someday.
Do you want to see pound throwing mortar? Hello. Yeah. You got to talk
My
Jerry.
You got to
only.
subscribe.
Thank you.
Yeah, you want me to shoot my
Ty.
24-pound corn mortar? Okay,
Ty.
yes,
Speaking
sir.
of,
You're getting me off.
Speaking of big guns, Ty, you were talking about the July 3rd bombardment. So what were you saying?
Yes, this is a very good subject.
Yes,
it is indeed. One of the quotes that struck me that I was so I have this like wonderful compilation of Pickett's Charge eyewitness accounts. Most of it's just like, oh my god, they fired double canister at us at such a close range. It was so sad. That's typically what you get from these accounts. And I hate to be so harsh, but I also love to be so harsh. So, anyways, Private Erasmus Williams of the 14th Virginia was one of those unfortunate recipients of that wonderful recipients of the Union Army who decided to respond to this bombardment. Because not only was it those Confederate guns that you always hear about massing and firing, but there was quite a bit of Union return fire too. And Erasmus gives us a very honest account of what it was like to endure a bombardment from Cemetery Hill. And this is what he has to tell us. He says, early on the morning of the 3rd, we advanced marching by column and then formed line of battle in rear of the Confederate artillery and infantry. After my part of the brigade was posted in the open, I soon got out a case knife, which I carried, and with my bayonet began digging a hole and throwing the dirt in front of me. One of the lieutenants of the 14th was standing up in rear with his back against a sapling. He laughed at me for digging a hole and said good-naturedly, "Why, Williams, you are a coward." "You can call me what you please," said I, "but when the time comes, I will show up all right. And when the artillery begins, the hole I am digging will be a good place for me to be in." So I kept on until I had a good little fort for the accommodation of one. Not long after this, I heard Colonel Hodges of my regiment say to Captain Logan of my company, "Cannonade is going to commence in presently, and a signal gun will begin it." A little later, the colonel fell upon the field and was dead upon the field of honor. I had been campaigning a little on my own account, and passing a house went in. I found 2 or 3 Confederates there, but all the people gone. So I helped myself to a jowl of meat and a half-gallon of salt, which were very acceptable as reinforcements to my rations. Not only to me, but to my company, for the rations were scant. So I settled myself in a little fortification and awaited events. The lieutenant behind me kept guying my and said, "I am going to stand up right here and witness the whole proceeding." Smiling and chatting, he took things as easy and less cautiously than I did. In a little while, the signal fired, and there came a terrific blast all along the lines from the enemy's guns in reply. In a few minutes, I was covered with dirt from the shot and shells striking near me. Presently, indeed, almost instantly, the defiant lieutenant was swept away by a shot or shell, and his blood sprinkled all over me. A shell stuck in the ground right by me, with the fuse still burning. I had just time to stretch my hand and pull out the fuse, else both I and others might have been killed by its explosion. A little later, and after we were moving to the charge, a shell from the enemy's battery to our right struck our line, killed Captain Logan and 9 in our company.
Wow, I didn't realize the Confederate had a EOD.
Generals that were like, haha, I'll be okay. Every single one of them got obliterated, and this one guy that dug that little hole with his, is okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, I love how he just reaches out and unscrews.
Yeah, he's just like,
yeah.
you guys want to be talking shit? Okay. And then he tells you, that motherfucker that was talking shit, his blood was all over me. He wasn't anything but a pink mist.
I'm with Rich. I like the EOD story.
Yeah, it just reminds me like that raw, like Ukrainian guy that just walks up to the the
landmine,
just pulls it out with a toothbrush or something.
And then you had this guy just like, I casually just pulled the fuse out of a shell that just blew up. Right? Yeah, no problem.
Well, see, this is another thing that goes back to what Daz was talking about with historical fiction and the movie. Everyone thought that Pickett's division was all in the woods because of the movie.
Yeah,
these guys are like 2 out of the 3 brigades of Pickett are out in the open.
Just walking into a house.
But it's all right. Colonel Fremantle was there having a cup of tea.
Right? This guy was making coffee out of his Mr. Coffee, and I just walked in and took it. Oh, but they bombed it.
Was that guy with Kemper? Was that guy in Kemper's brigade?
14th Virginia.
So I got something for you guys.
Okay.
I got something for you guys on this very topic. So on this tour today, we have 2 men that I feature on this tour in the Seattle Cemetery.
Okay.
One of Kemper's brigade, 11th Virginia, and one of the 14th Vermont, Stannard's brigade, down a ways.
Oh, I love Stannard's
brigade. Both of them, in part of what I spoke about this afternoon, specifically talks about what they did during the bombardment. Right. Okay. So the Kemper's guy, he didn't get splattered with blood or go steal anything, but what they wrote about, and John's right, they were out basically laying in the grass by Emmitsburg Road. It took me a while to realize this too, that Pickett's church just didn't go straight across the field.
Right. It did.
Pettigrew did. Kemper and the other regions, they came at a 45-degree oblique up the Emmitsburg Road for a mile before they finally got to the area around the angle. But when they're on the receiving end, because they're out there in the middle of the field getting hammered, he said the smoke from the Confederate artillery, the incoming shells, what these guys would do would dig a hole around their face because they couldn't breathe from all the artillery smoke and that sulfurous thing. So they would dig a hole and they would lay a handkerchief in the hole and they would stick their face in the ground because they could at least breathe fresh air, cool air, because they couldn't get up, they couldn't get water. They're just getting heat stroke. Basically, they can't breathe because of the smoke. So they literally, many of them in the 11th Virginia dig holes to stick their face in the ground because it's the only way they can get humidity or moisture or anything resembling fresh air because they can't breathe while this is going on. Again, very different from Colonel Fremantle and his teacup and everybody in the woods, and the ones that were in the woods are getting mauled because the trees were getting blown apart and falling on them too.
Around them.
So there's like, man, they weren't just back there, thinking about old Virginia and the pies and they're going to get when they get back home. I mean, it was awful. Yeah. And Kemper's guys were out there all day. They didn't just go out there right before they went out there in the morning and laid there on their face. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Kemper's guys were out there all day. They didn't just go out. Oh, there's my echo. On the other side of it, in Stannard's brigade, the 14th Vermont, there's an officer that's writing an account how all the men in his company or whatever around him were falling asleep during the bombardment.
Yeah.
Because there's so much noise and they all started going to sleep. And he even writes how he had to fight to stay awake. He's like, I was so sleepy and and they weren't getting struck by much where they were. Everything was going over them. But such a contrast. These guys are like, oh my God, I can't even keep my eyes open. And these other guys are digging into the ground to breathe suffocate themselves in order to breathe something resembling fresh air. It's crazy to think that that's some of what these guys are experiencing. And nothing like the movie.
No. You can sleep through artillery fire.
I've done it.
Sleep through artillery fire?
Well, okay, so young Lance Corporal Noonan, probably 95, 96 time frame. We're out in the desert training, and there's an artillery battery behind us. They're shooting over us. Been banging away all day, all night. Well, I go hit the rack. They're blasting away. Slept like a log. Mm-hmm. You could sleep because the noise. Eventually, you get used to the noise. You know.
Yeah.
Well, it's continuous like that. I can imagine.
And I'd imagine too the march to Gettysburg, especially for somebody like the Second Vermont Brigade. I mean, the amount of ground they're covering in the heat, and they had fought the night before, too. They didn't; those Vermonters didn't just show up on the 3rd. They fought the very end of the fight after Wright was getting pushed away, or they pushed Wright back. So I could sleep
for that to get you to it. I bet your missus loves you when you put that tape on to go to bed at night.
Oh, I feel my wife has to wear earplugs.
I can't sleep. I'm going to put the bombardment tape on.
I remember we used to get guys when we had a lot of like in the reenacting days. We would get a lot of guys out there who we had a good number of already out there blazing away. And back in the day, you didn't have 10 minutes between rounds. Mm-hmm. You would get that if you would lay on the ground, and it was just like one of those kind of things where it's like that ground vibrating would even put you to sleep. And I saw guys snoring out there and like 20 minutes into these mock bombardments, and I'm like, what is that sound? And I look around and there's like 3 guys snoring back there. They're sound asleep.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
So
now not unusual. I thought that account was fairly unusual, but not unprecedented.
I've also been on the receiving end, and that side isn't so fun. That's very not fun.
Yeah.
I can only imagine, dude. That's that.
Well, so if Lee's art, we always talk about, Lee, the artillery was overshooting and they didn't even know it. If they had been effective, Gettysburg on day 3 would have been a totally different story.
Sure. If
the Confederates had been able to move up more of their troops under an actual suppressing fire, because remember, the Confederates didn't shoot over the head of their own troops unless absolutely necessary because of the bad fuses and all the problems they've had with their shells throughout the war. The infantry didn't like having shells burst over the head. Can't say I blame them, but if that fire, the initial bombardment had been effective and not shooting over, say it had been hitting at the base of the wall, shattering that stuff, knocking the and even solid shot or case shot, if it was landing in the air it was supposed to, the attack would have gone totally different. Even if during the movement up the Confederates had gotten realized, hey, obviously we weren't doing as good as we thought, we need to lower our fire some, just to keep the Union troops' heads down as they move, between the troops and the artillery, keep their heads down as they moved up. Again, if more troops had gotten to the wall, who's to say it wouldn't have gone a different way?
Right.
I got a question for you guys. I've been thinking about this all this week because I've been reading about the second day, which is, by the way, impossible to summarize on a 45-minute tour. I learned that yesterday. I tried to tell the second day, and in the middle of it, I had a moment where you've ever been driving your car and you're like, what's going on? Where am I at? How did I get here? In the middle of my talk about the second, in my brain, I'm going, this is stupid. I can't possibly explain this. But as I've been reading about it, you hear about over and over and over and over all these points where the the Confederate Army almost broke through. They almost did this. Barksdale almost broke through. Little Round Top almost, blah, blah. And sometimes I think, especially about Pickett's Charge, I'm like, what if they did break through, was that going to just like sever the Union Army and they were all going to run back to Washington, D.C., or were they just going to collapse around wherever that
after plan
was? There was nothing else coming behind most of those. So even Pickett's Charge, I'm like, what if that artillery fire was effective and they made it through? 12,000 guys are now in the middle of the two wings of the Union Army, which are also still on high ground. And then what? I don't know that I buy it that something could have changed the tide if Pickett's Charge had broken the Union line somewhat there, that artillery was effective or not. I still think they just run right in the middle of something. And I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think that would just scatter the Union Army if Pickett's Charge had broke through?
No. Jomini points out that to break a fishhook configuration, you have to hit the entire line at all spots at one time.
Right.
Lee tries that and it totally fails because
on the second,
new wing commanders, new corps commanders, there's whatever else is going on. It happens again on the third. The morning stuff happens on Culp's Hill because returning U.S. Army troops are going back and they set off another avalanche of gunfire and everything else. And that just blows away the opportunity of Ewell to support the afternoon attack because he's been hit in the morning. So even, like you say, even if they would have broken through, Meade still has the interior lines.
Yeah.
He could pull people from any part of that line. And, the left wing has been reinforced. Basically, he could pull people from the left wing and pull them up and just bring them right up Ponytown Road and reinforce the center. They have like 12,000 men who go into that attack on the third. By the time they would get to that wall, they might have 7,000 who are still, maybe, I don't know, maybe eight.
I would think,
they're not at full strength. Definitely, they've taken a lot of casualties by then because you had the bombardment and the attack. So you're talking less than 9,000 men, maybe less than 8,000 men going in against entire reserves that are division size, maybe even corps, because that one corps is out behind Big Round Top. They're not even engaged. All they have to do is
all the 6 corpsmen
and go up Ponytown Road, and it's game over. So you're absolutely right, Richard. That the interior lines dooms the Army of Northern Virginia. They can't attack simultaneously.
So if you say that, so I think that sort of this idea that maybe Pickett's Charge isn't the great what if moment of the battle. It's probably a lot less likely, no matter how well it went, that it was actually going to achieve what they wanted to. But is there something on the second? Is there something where they were attacking all points simultaneously that's like, man, if they had snuck through, if Wright had broken through, or if Barksdale had. But again, none of them had anything to support. There's nobody behind any of them on the second, on the Confederate side. Do you think there's somewhere that would have broken the fishhook on the second with all that concentrated?
I think so. I think.
Where do you think?
I think the only place that they had a chance that would have been detrimental to the entire line was that late evening attack on Cemetery Hill.
Oh, okay.
If you lose Cemetery Hill, you lose the artillery plateau.
Oh, yeah.
And now you're in trouble because the high ground's lost on that end of the line. That commands the entire valley down at least a little Round Top. That commands everything. So I think that's because if you take like the ridge at Pickett's Charge, if you take the ridge there and you break through, okay, well, Cemetery Hill's still on your left flank. And, you got Tonytown Road might be broken, but there's an entire corps down there that hasn't been engaged yet. They're coming down that road. But Cemetery Hill, especially with that late evening attack when there can be a lot of confusion after dark, if you can just get up there and set and turn guns on, turn captured guns on them and do all that, man, I would really think that would be detrimental, because then you also snap that the road going what's the road going down there, Baltimore Pike, you snap that, and now that's communication routes for Meade's army
completely gone.
Yeah
yeah
so either way, there's going to be a road snap that's very important because it's all interior, right? But it's that I think, in my opinion, it's that artillery plateau, and the key element of being Cemetery Hill would be the only.
There was more of a Confederate reserve on that side of the battlefield, right? Like I don't know which brigades were back there, but in the town of Gettysburg, it's like Dole's Georgia Brigade and others from that aspect of the Army Rhodes Division, yeah. So had something happened on Cemetery Hill, they would have. But I mean, if they got up Little Round Top or something, then what? You're like you said, half burned up, getting there, and then there's nobody behind you.
Well, and
so that's a good point.
One Cemetery thing Hill. That, if you think about it, and throughout the war, it always seemed, the focus is on to destroy that army. Well, I can't remember which battle. I think it was Second Manassas, where that was probably the closest they ever came to destroying an army, destroying Pope. But the armies were just too big that, you might have, even like you said, if they had punched through the center of the line, that's fine. You still have all these other troops that aren't just going to break and run, like the early battles of the war, the armies were too big to be totally destroyed. I mean, and you look at where, Grant tried to wear Lee down, but even I think he realized, I'm not going to destroy the army. I'm just going to remove its ability to fight.
Right.
I think Daryl's on something there. I think the only pushback from that I'll give is that you can break an entire army if you have an overwhelming number in front. I'm only thinking of, Daz's ancestors at Waterloo.
Ooh.
Okay, when you've got British and Prussian going against 90,000 Frenchmen, you can break them. Okay, luckily 30,000 are with Grouchy somewhere else, but you can break an army if they suddenly find themselves separated.
Yeah,
and if you can split the U.S. Army at Gettysburg and split it effectively with reserves.
You would have had to have a follow-on.
You can separate, but you have to have a follow-up, and you have to. And remember what happens, like with these Napoleonic armies, the follow-up is worse than the actual battle because they're just killing people right and left.
Yeah.
So it is hard to, like, if you have Meade at Gettysburg, if you have, let's say, 90,000. And then you have a Confederate army with just under 80,000. It is hard to break that because you're both evenly matched in that regard. But it's not out of the realm of possibilities if you can push Meade back with big casualties and there's only 40,000 fresh reserves in the defenses of Washington. Now you got a different thing because now it's a Grouchy kind of thing from Napoleon.
I wonder if
I'm sorry, I went deep into Napoleonic War there.
I wonder if his goal, and it's never really said, but was it just to push the army off a Cemetery Ridge? Because if it had broken through, I think they would have had to, in my opinion, at least withdraw some.
Yeah, who's there to support?
Yeah,
like Richard said, who's there to support?
As I understood it, through some of the different sources I've read lately, that they're kind of putting forth the idea that South Cemetery Hill was the target at that point. So they would break through there, and then that would open up the ability to come up that side of Cemetery Hill from the back of the artillery.
Yeah, because they were hoping that Rhodes was going to push forward.
Yeah.
Against the western slope of Cemetery Hill. So it's kind of like this kind of pincer-like thing. But the question has to be asked, well, that's okay. If you break through the Federal line there with like Pickett and Pettigrew, and they swing towards Cemetery Hill, what about all the Federals that are behind them now? Hood and McLaws can't hold them.
No, they were beat up from the day before.
And that corps is down the Tonytown Road just waiting. They'd be licking their lips waiting for that to happen. So it was almost just... I don't want to say it was doomed from the start because you don't really know what would happen. But the way it panned out with no support, the artillery has just blown everything away as far as like out of their limber chests. It's gone.
All they had left was canister.
Yeah, and their infantry don't want to pass under exploding shell because they're like, we know those fuses. We're not going to do that. Forget that. You guys can just sit down for a little while. So yeah, it's a great question, and one that I would love to pose to like 50 different historians of the battle and say, if the breakthrough could have happened, where would have been the worst possible place for it to happen? I think that's a fantastic question. Right?
That sounds like a fantastic idea for us to maybe all come together and do an episode on again.
Yeah.
I think that would be a really cool conversation if we can get all this together again one of these days here soon, and we just go into a little further about what we talked about tonight. I mean, you guys are fantastic. Sure. I would love, more than love to have you guys back on again.
Yeah, but we're bring up Napoleon Day. Sorry.
Tonight.
That's right. No problem. Can I just say one thing?
Can we do a Napoleon at Gettysburg?
Oh God.
You're open.
I'm going to ask you all a question. Is Gettysburg as big a turning point as people make out? Because I personally don't think it's a turning point.
Wilderness.
It was a moral,
it's not a turning point in my eyes
of the army.
Civil War as a turning point.
Wilderness.
In real terms, in my opinion, no. But it did raise the spirit of the army that, hey, look.
That's what I mean, yeah.
You mean to tell me it's a bigger morale boost than Hooker?
Yes.
That's right.
Because look at what Hooker did. He got out-generaled, where Meade
out-generaled the general.
Out-generaled the general.
That's right.
I think Gettysburg was a victory to that. Hey, look, we can fight. Just like the cavalry learned a couple at Brandy Station. Yeah. The army got to realize, hey, look, they're not 10 foot tall. They can scream and howl all they want, and we'll just shoot.
Yeah. That's right.
I think I always go back to what the veterans thought, and boy, they put a lot of time and effort into Gettysburg.
Yeah.
And to them, that was something special.
Yes.
And one of these days, I want to go through. I have a yearbook from the 50th anniversary of the Gettysburg reunion.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
And it's really cool. They're pull out maps of all the tents and where you can go.
Oh man, they were massive.
The oldest vet.
Oh man,
the oldest vet there in 1913. The oldest vet there is 112 years old.
Very safe.
This is it.
Yes, sir.
And Chamberlain walked.
I don't want to open it, but this is the book here.
Open it.
Lost.
Rich, if you don't open that, I'm going to come over to Scatto just to look at there and scold you. I'm serious. You open that and you enjoy that.
Sorry, hang on. So Joshua Chamberlain went back to the reunion every year apart from the last one.
All right, can we see here?
Yes, sir. Open it. Hey, open the book. Open the book.
This one, I got a copy with the maps. So speaking, you want to see something really cool. So here's these maps. I don't even know if we can get them on the camera.
I know. Hold on, let me go get one.
This is a map of the tents, the encampment. It folds out several times here. But let me show you something super cool.
You are going to be in for a ball. It is an incredible piece of history to have that. If you can find it, by the way, folks, it's very cheap right now online. If you can find an actual copy of the 50th anniversary Gettysburg yearbook, I can't stress to you how much you need that in your life. The maps alone are freaking incredible. The pictures, everything about it. Rich,
the maps to find one with the maps intact is very, very difficult.
It is.
So when we talk about the importance or supposed importance of Gettysburg,
right?
I always go to what the GAR men said, the Grand Army of the Republic.
And thank you for showing me where that's at, by the way.
Yeah,
John and I just recently stood out front of the GAR post again.
Yes, we did. I also go to the documents that are the speeches that the men gave when they dedicated the statues on the battlefield.
Yeah.
The monuments. because that tells you exactly what they were fighting for. They say it in black and white. They have,
and John, to echo that, I think I pointed at a specific sign you and I saw when we were in Gettysburg, and one of those signs said, "This battle was fought because Black Lives Matter." And I've never seen a sign speak to me so much, but that was one.
That's a good one. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
That was brought.
That was the first time I've ever seen something that spoke to me. I was like, "Holy crap!"
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I've seen. I occasionally would post. It's a meme, but it's that picture of the dead Confederates on Antietam on the northern end of the field,
right?
And 560,000 soldiers died. The original black, or I did it for the Union side, so I stripped it out, and it was like, what's it, 280 some thousand Union troops died. I'm just drawing a blank on the numbers.
Right, but I think I get what you're calling
it's the original Black Lives Matter.
It started there, man.
Yeah.
It did. Well, folks.
Shoot, I'm struggling to find. I'm trying to go through the thing because I can't pull out every single map to find. There's a
lot
to pull out that's about this. That's about this long. That is all the Washington State veterans that went back to that reunion.
Wow.
And there's a whole bunch of those guys in the photo, guys that I talked about today that were wounded on July 1st are in that photo at 1863 or 1913. It's that photo. To even find a copy of it was a miracle for me, and then to find it in the actual book was just just remarkable. So this book is very fragile. That's the only way I could afford one, is that it's a piece of shit, the book, but it's got all the maps in it. So,
my spine is completely gone, but I still have
it. Yeah, me too.
Well, maybe, I think, gents, maybe Rich, we should go through this here soon, and maybe we should do a follow-up on this, because this book is incredible.
Yeah, it is.
And I'd love to have
I could spend 4 hours with you with just 1913 reunion stories from Seattle.
Those are the
These guys,
Civil War
there's
memories
so much.
Civil War memory is absolutely important.
Yeah.
On that note, guys.
All right, guys.
It was great to talk to y'all.
It was.
Happy 1
you
year
too, Des.
And
John.
Happy Traitors Day, you bunch of traitors. Enjoy your coffee.
Today we're only treasonous if you
Hey, I saw you were drinking America's beer at your encampment, though. So
no, but that's just it. Budweiser is brewed in the UK, and all the ingredients come from the UK, so it's not.
It's brewed in the United States too.
I want to leave all of
the
you.
one
off
we drink here is brewed in the UK.
Oh, well, that's. But where it's trademarked,
it's horrible.
Daryl, we got to tell him one last thing.
It's cheap.
Before we leave, I'm sorry for the best breakup letter of all time, which happens to be the Declaration of Independence.
Best breakup letter. Oh,
yeah.
Here's your dear John. Have a fantastic next 200 years, folks.
Wow.
I'll
be sending that picture of George Washington.
The Queen and yada yada yada.
And I'll shit on him.
Signed sincerely.
I'll put him in a pot. I'll put him in a chamber pot. Shall I?
Oh. Yeah, there you go. That's
yeah.
Again, guys, make sure you don't forget. This is July 4th tomorrow. Dump your tea in the harbor. Tell Daz Happy 4th of July.
I'll be drinking
single one of you, and guys who joined me tonight, thank you all so much for helping me bring in this first celebration of Unfiltered Historian. It's been a hell of a year.
Congratulations.
Like, you guys have helped this be what it is, so I mean, tremendously thank you.
Lots more to come.
And for those watching and supporting and commenting, you guys really are the reason we're doing this, so thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Make sure you check out the Unfiltered Historian. Make sure you go and follow my friends Civil War Seattle and the Tattoo Historian. See, I'm going to do it again where I'm going to call myself Tattoo Historian. You're the Unfiltered Historian now. We're doing it. Please go follow Tattoo Historian.
There can only be one.
American Civil War and UK history. If you don't like it already, make sure you like and subscribe. And if you haven't joined the NSSA, you should go shoot something big and cool and call it a fun time. Because it's pretty cool. Ain't that right there?
And if you're in Seattle, go on a tour, damn it.
Yes.
There are
bills to pay, guys, so come on out here.
I can't wait to come out there.
You guys are fantastic. Thank you all for what you do. And we will
All right,
see
Tyler.
you on the next one.
Adios.
Take care.
Adios.